Keep the change.
You ever wonder what the greatest man's man movie is?
Roadhouse.
Something you can knock the beers back and chat shit about your wife to? Well, have I got the movie for you. Creepy Victorian Child back here with another video. I'm sorry the last two uploads have had no visuals. Unfortunately, Disney didn't like me showing too much of the Star Wars, so oops. And the Japanese conglomerate that owns Shogun Assassin, Toho Entertainments, or whatever they're called, didn't want me to show any of that either. Check them out anyways, they're quite a good commentary. This week I'm going to be looking at a childhood favourite of mine and an iconically good bad movie, Roadhouse, from 1989, starring Patrick Swayze and directed by Rowdy Herrington. What better time to do it than when the reboot has just come out on Amazon Prime, and it's pretty good but nowhere close to this amazing action movie. This late 80s classic is about legendary bouncer Dalton, played by Patrick Swayze, God rest his soul, who is hired by the owner of an extremely rough and rowdy roadhouse in Kansas. He begins to interfere with local big shot Brad Wesley's businesses and control over this small Kansas town, taking matters into his own hands and only wielding his black belt in karate and degree in philosophy. He tries to save the bar, the townsfolk, all from corruption and control from this unlikable monster. As mentioned before, this film is directed by Rowdy Herrington, director of films that no one likes. But this film does have a great producer, Joel Silver, who's produced iconic 80s movies such as Predator, Lethal Weapon and Die Hard, among so many other great movies. With a budget of $15 million, the film grossed $30 million domestically and $31 internationally. So, not too shabby. Critics were and aren't harsh on this movie, calling it the best good bad movie ever. I think that's total bullshit. It's incredible. They say it is cheesy and too 80s, but fuck off. There is a great plot, performances, the soundtrack is phenomenal, and all before mentioning the badass characters, well choreographed fight scenes, and lots of nudity. Nice. Roadhouse has a killer soundtrack. The Jeff Healey Plan play the house band at the Double Deuce in the movie. Contributing a lot to the soundtrack and overall aesthetic, the other songs were written by Michael Kamen. So this film opens with a smoking hot chick pulling up to a busy bar. As she walks through, the band is rocking the place down. The man is looking at Swayze's Dalton, a cool as fuck bouncer who is looking towards a bar fight. Dalton leaps into action and asks the man to kindly leave. He starts on Dalton, challenging him to a fight. Dalton agrees and says to do it outside. They go outside and Dalton walks immediately back into the bar, and the other bouncers create a wall stopping the men from returning. Showcasing his unorthodox but effective methods to Frank Tillman, owner of the Double Deuce in Jasper, Kansas. Frank offers Dalton a job, which Dalton accepts but on his own terms. Dalton has fucking incredible hair. I think this film has a great style that not many movies seem to capture. It's grimy, it's smoky, it's very 80s. And it's better than the remake. Dalton gets his car from a lockup and shoves in his mixtape and heads on a road trip because he refuses to fly as it's too dangerous. On the road again, covered by the Jeff Healey band plays as he pulls up to the infamous Double Deuce Roadhouse in Kansas. It's a busy night and it looks rough as hell. Bikers are lined up outside, endless bar fights, harassment of female staff, bouncers are being overly aggressive, there's drugs, rock and roll, and there's the iconic cage around the band. My blind boy Jeff Healey, safe to say this is not your family friendly bar. Dalton and Jeff's band have worked together before at another bar. Also, Jeff Healey's character is called Cody in the movie. They only say it like once, so I'm just going to keep calling him Jeff.
Thanks, man. So you played pretty good for a blind white boy.
Yeah, and I thought you'd be bigger.
Everyone working at the Double Deuce has heard of Dalton, and there are many rumours going around that he's ripped a guy's throat out. A huge bar fight breaks out over this gorgeous pair of tits and the band start hammering on. Dalton doesn't interfere, dodging a bottle that is thrown at him. The fights in this film are surprisingly well done and also quite funny. They work in little moments that are quite entertaining to say the least. After the fight, the staff are cleaning up and the overly aggressive bouncer questions Dalton on why he didn't step in.
You don't look like much to me.
The bouncer then asks Jeff about Dalton.
You fuck with him and he'll seal your fate.
Dalton then goes to a car dealership and purchases a new car, going to a junkyard to get spare tyres. He places them in the trunk and heads to a farm where there's a room where he's looking to rent. It is a pretty awesome room above a barn, I can't lie. I would definitely like this. While Emmett the farmer is showing Dalton around the room, a helicopter flies overhead scaring Emmett's horses. They rush down to calm down the horses. Emmett explains that a man called Brad Wesley lives across the lake and he's the town's big shot, owning most of the police force and most of the companies. Farmer Emmett only charges Dalton $100 a month for the room, which I think is an absolute steal. I don't know what that translates to nowadays. Back at the Double Deuce, the owner Frank holds a meeting with all his staff explaining that Dalton is the best cooler in the business and is now in charge of the front of house. Anything he says goes. Dalton immediately calls out the aggressive bouncer and the drug dealing waitress, firing them on the spot. Dalton explains 3 rules he wants everybody to abide by.
1, never underestimate your opponent. Expect the unexpected. 2, take it outside. Never start anything inside the bar unless it's absolutely necessary. And 3, be nice. Come on. If somebody gets in your face and calls you a cocksucker, I want you to be nice.
That night, Dalton notices a bartender skimming the till and one of the bouncers not bothering to check IDs. A woman hops up on the table to dance. Dalton signals for one of the bouncers to go and get her, but when he tries to ask nicely, he gets punched in the face and the bloke pulls out a knife. Dalton rushes to help and shows off his awesome moves, dispatching the guy quickly. One of the staff members is actually banging his fucking cute as fuck little hot thing in the back room, and Dalton catches them with their perky little tits in the shadows. Also confronting the till skimming bartender, he fires them both on the spot, and upon going outside, Dalton finds his car wrecked with the tyres slashed. Luckily, he's prepared as he got the spares from the junkyard earlier. Dalton sees a pool party at Brad Wesley's house. He turns off his lamp so they can't see that he's spying. What a fucking creep. Carrie Ann, one of the bartenders from the Double Deuce, finds out where Dalton is staying and brings him food, warning him to be careful in this town. Dalton then finally gets to Red Webster's hardware store, which is opposite the Double Deuce. Brad and Dalton meet in person finally, and when Dalton leaves, Brad threatens Red. Emmett sees Dalton practicing his Tai Chi by the lake. Brad is also spying on Dalton from across the lake. This film has an exceptional soundtrack. I love the guitar tones. I love everything about it. It's got great covers, great hits, all good. So another night at the Double Deuce, Dalton goes up to Frank's office. Pat, the till skimming fuck, has come back to get his job. Threatening to cut the bar from alcohol deliveries, Pat turns out to be Brad's nephew. Pat starts a fight with Dalton, but Dalton throws him straight through a window. A fight starts with Dalton winning, but he is stabbed, so he ends up going to hospital. Here is when he meets Elizabeth, the doc, who he immediately becomes smitten with, telling her if she's ever in the area to come to the Double Deuce so he can buy her a coffee. Dalton carries around his medical records like a true professional, also apparently has a degree in philosophy. Everyone throughout this film makes remarks about how they thought Dalton was going to be bigger. Meanwhile, Brad's men arrive back at his house where you can see a monster truck, which I really did not remember a monster truck being in this movie, but hey, there you go. Brad intimidates his men, beating one of them up because they failed at getting Pat his job back.
You're a bleeder.
Dalton arrives at the Double Deuce, noticing that two of Brad's men are pulling away from Red's store and speeding down the road. Red's store has been robbed and wrecked, and Red explains that Brad takes 10% from every local business. Dalton calls a longtime friend and mentor Wade Garrett, played by the awesome Sam Elliott. I love this guy, got a killer mustache, and he's fucking cool as shit.
I know you want to save the world from the commies, but you're gonna have to do it from down here, man.
Wade is a bouncer at a strip club, and there's great tits in this movie. So guys, lesbians, boo fans alike, this film is for you. Dalton wants some advice from Wade on this situation. Unfortunately, a fight breaks out at the strip club, so Wade doesn't have time to give him help. The Double Deuce is now looking like a clean, functioning bar. There's less smoke, grime, and no cage around the band. I think this film does a much better job than the reboot at showing the difference Dalton makes to the bar, the staff, and even the town. Brad's slutty, sexy bitch begins hitting on Dalton. She is hot, not gonna lie, but you know you'd be getting something from her that you'd have to get tested. Brad's men show up wanting to cause trouble, but Dalton gets them straight outside and a fight ensues.
You're too stupid to have a good time.
Doc is all dressed up, looking hot as fuck to see Dalton, when she actually just watches him kick the shit out of the guys. Luckily, he wins and they go for coffee, and then they do the whole, I'm a bad guy, you don't want me in your life. I know you're a bad guy, but I'm okay with it. You know? Okay. Brad's men show up to the farm and they take Dalton to Brad's house for a meeting. Brad explains his origin story and then brings up Dalton's trial from down in Memphis. Apparently, he pleaded self-defense. He asked Dalton how much it would cost to hire him. Dalton declines any interest in working for him.
There's no amount of money.
The bar is looking even better with a bright, fun vibe inside, and the staff all have brand new uniforms. Keith David, the fucking man himself, Charles from The Thing, and of course the president from Rick and Morty, and just legendary actor in his own right, is a bartender. I think it's great. I totally forgot he was in this movie as well. Bar's going really successfully, but Frank explains to Dalton that the alcohol is getting low as they can't get any new deliveries. He says leave it to him. And just outside is the doctor herself. Brad's men see this interaction between Dalton and the doctor, and you know that isn't going to be a good thing. They go back to Dalton's where we find out that Doc's uncle is Red, and they go back to Dalton's and we find out Doc's uncle is Red, the owner of the hardware store, and they have weird sex in that one impossible position they only do in porn. Speaking of porn, my dad had a friend who was watching this when his wife came back, and she thought he was watching softcore porn in the living room. They had an argument, and it's funny, right? They cuddle outside naked, but I'll tell you what, it must be a warm summer's eve because it is nighttime and they are naked by a lake. Brad watches from across the lake, creepy cunt. In the morning, Dalton is helping out Emmett, and Emmett gives Dalton some womanly advice.
You never know, son. Maybe she'll be smart enough for both of you.
Jeff warns Dalton that Brad used to be with Elizabeth, so to watch his back. Wade Garrett arrives at the Double Deuce.
The double douche.
And while taking in a delivery of alcohol, Dalton is ambushed by Brad's men, who start wrecking the booze and a fight starts. They eventually get the upper hand, but Wade comes around the corner and saves the day. That night, Dalton, Garrett, they pick up Elizabeth from the hospital and the trio go and stay out all night drinking, finally arriving at a diner in the early hours of the morning to dance. Wade is honestly one cool cat. Honestly, he's great. I love his style in this film. He's just a cool cat. While Elizabeth is in the toilet, he wants Dalton to stop carrying the past around with him. We find out that Dalton did kill a man by ripping out his throat, all because the guy pulled a gun on him after finding Dalton sleeping with his wife. Which is fair enough, to be fair. Jeff Healey is playing a great cover of Cream's White Room. As a bouncer rushes in to tell Dalton that Red's store is burning down as they speak. When they arrive outside, there is a huge explosion, so they all retreat back inside. Once inside, Brad is sitting at the bar with his men all around him, calling Red a draft-dodging faggot. His sexy little plaything begins dancing very erotically on the stage next to the band. Dalton tries to get her off the stage, but she starts stripping down, showing off her amazingly perky titties. He drags her off stage, telling Brad,
If you're gonna have a pet, keep it on a leash.
Brad's lead henchman, Jimmy, challenges the bouncers to a fight. Starting a huge bar fight, Wade and Dalton take on the gang. Brad gets enough of this and shoots his gun in the air, stopping the fight and the music. Red is packing up his home and he decides to leave town. Dalton, Doc, and the other business owners are trying to convince him not to go. Brad goes to the car dealership and drives a monster truck through it, causing a ridiculous amount of damage to send a message. Elizabeth is there, so she confronts Brad about why he's being such a cunt and what he has against Dalton. Dalton is having a sweaty, angry training session when Wade sneaks up on him, advising him to leave town as they've both bitten off more than they can chew. Dalton is taking this personally and tells Wade he can leave at any point. They have a nice student mentor moment and it's beautiful. It makes a grown man want to cry.
We don't want to do this.
While Dalton and Elizabeth are having an argument, a huge explosion goes off and it turns out to be Farmer Emmett's house. It goes... They rush down and find him on the front lawn. Seeing Jimmy fleeing from the scene on a motorbike, Dalton catches up to him and knocks him off the bike. Two engage in a great fight. It's fucking and it's pretty evenly matched, but Jimmy eventually gets the upper hand until he pulls a pistol out and then the PTSD kicks in. Dalton rips out his throat in front of Elizabeth and she's just horrified, which is like, yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, during the fight, Jimmy says, I used to fuck guys like you in prison. And it's like, dude, is that a threat or are you coming on to me, bro? Like, Dalton screams Brad's name from across the lake like a heroic moment. Wesley! Floating Jimmy's body towards his house. The next day, Brad calls the Double Deuce and Dalton answers. He explains that he's going to have to choose who's going to die. It's either Elizabeth or Wade. Having not decided, Brad flips a coin to decide and never tells him the answer. Wade soon wanders in, bloody and bruised. Dalton tells him to stay and have a beer. He's going to get Elizabeth and they're going to leave this town. Dalton tells him to stay and have a beer. He's going to get Elizabeth and they're going to leave this town. Once at the hospital, Dalton is trying to convince Elizabeth to leave and come with him, but she's very hesitant after witnessing him murder someone in a very horrific way. Badass, but horrific. When Dalton arrives back at the Double Deuce, he finds Wade unconscious. Turns out he's dead. He's dead on top of the bar with a knife pinning a message in his chest. Dalton, being filled with rage, drives straight to Brad's house, gaining the attention of his men. They all fire upon the car until it barrel rolls and explodes. But the sneaky bastard was never in the car, and he had stuck the acceleration down with a knife. Dalton is sneaking around Brad's mansion, taking out the men one by one. Finally, just getting down to him and Brad, fighting in Brad's trophy room, which is epic. Don't agree with hunting for sport, but what a set. I love this. I also love the detail of the hunting photos in the background, really nice touch. Dalton should have taken him out quicker than he does, but oh well, considering how badass he was throughout the entire movie, he thought he'd be able to take out this old guy pretty quickly. Brad technically gets the upper hand, but then Brad gets shot by each of the business owners and they quickly discard of the murder weapons before the police arrive. And even when the sheriff does arrive, they all just deny any knowledge of what happened and the sheriff's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Anyway, Dalton and Doc go skinny dipping, the roadhouse is all safe, Jeff Healey and his band are rocking us into the credits and the town is free. So, this is the end of the motherfucking movie. I hope you all enjoyed this video. There's so much more of this on this channel. I'm trying to do more, but I'm very, very busy with work. I do appreciate it. Honestly, just subscribe, tell everybody. Yeah, alright. Well, thank you very much and good night.